Yo, what's going on, guys? Today we are going to be going over Big Boom Boyo. This is pretty much like a Nova burner Zane setup, except we're not going to be using the Nova burner. We are going to be using the Stinger again. What's really awesome about this setup is we do not need SEEIN dead for this build at all. So this is pretty much a non-DLC build. Although I actually did realize one of the DLC items from a different DLC is very good for this build. So we're going to go over that as well. But you do not need SEEIN dead. This is a great change of pace compared to what most Zane builds are, and this is very, very viable and super fun for mobbing, pretty much. Now, this setup works very well for mobbing, and it's probably the most fun while mobbing, but don't worry, I got some tricks for you guys for bossing, so we are pretty much going to get straight into it. Now, real quick, I do want to shout out Quag again, who pretty much gave me the flax setup, and we're using a lot of the same items, so he definitely deserves a shout out, and he will be in the pinned comment down below once again. So with that being said, let's pretty much just hop into the game, and I will explain how this build works, and the playstyle of it, and pretty much what you want to stick to while playing it. So here we are. All right, so basically this build revolves around the Stinger with the action skill start, shield, break, or fill effects. This is basically just a Nova build setup. We are using all of the melee artifacts, but it's really weird to call these melee builds when realistically this is a Nova setup. And there's a very fun playstyle behind this that I personally enjoy, and I know a lot of you guys will enjoy, because back in the day we used to always talk about using the Nova burner with clone and barrier and like all that good stuff. So that's what we're doing, but this time with the Stinger. So first, let's go into the skill trees, which we are using almost no points into blue tree. This is pretty much a full red and green setup, and it is pretty awesome. And I'm going to explain to you guys the play style of this build and why it's so much fun for mobbing, at least for me specifically, and it does insane damage. And another thing is we are not super gear reliant, since we are actually using the Unleash the Dragon most of the time. You don't have to hunt for a god rolled white elephant. So in the green tree, now, okay, one thing I want to say real quick is these skill trees aren't even necessarily set in stone. I'm just going to tell you guys what you need in this build and what you want, and you guys can pretty much work around that however you want. So this build is very flexible, and that's another really cool thing about it. Basically, though, we are using Calm, Cool, and Collected combined with Doppelbanger. So if you guys don't know this combo, but we can actually basically put our clone out, blow him up, trigger Calm, Cool, and Collected, and then just repeat that whole process. Because Calm, Cool, and Collected doesn't just reset your action skills, but it also resets your cooldowns. So basically we can abuse Doppelbanger over and over and over again, and it creates a pretty fun playstyle. I really enjoy playing this playstyle. So yeah, so basically we are gonna deploy our clone, which is going to activate our Stinger Anointment, which is going to trigger this huge Nova. Then you wait for enemies to deplete your clone's shield, triggering another Nova. Then you Doppelbanger, which is another explosion, which Doppelbanger actually does decent damage now. And then you freeze an enemy using your Linoge, which is a 4-pellet pistol, so it's perfect for triggering Calm, Cool, and Collected. And if you happen to run out of ammo, because this is ammo hungry, you can start to use your Kibsworth, which is a very fast firing ×2 weapon, which is pretty decent at triggering Calm, Cool, and Collected. And yeah, so you guys can kind of start to see this cycle that we are creating over and over and over again. Now, I'm going to just go over the skill trees. I'm going to talk about what we really don't need at all, and like how flexible this build is, and yeah. So basically we do want borrowed time because we do want our barrier up all of the time. Like this is really, like for Calm, Cool, Collected, you really want your barrier to keep your shields full and stuff. So borrowed time is really good. We don't need synchronicity. We are not relying on gun damage at all, which is why even in the blue tree, I didn't take violent momentum, because we're not relying on gun damage at all for this build. We are relying on the melee synergies. Next, you pretty much just want all of your clone skills, which is pretty straightforward. Duct tape mod is really cool, and is also really cool with the Linoge, because if you let your heat go all the way down. This should trigger duct tape mod all the time. Donnybrook, I actually picked up for the health regen. This is a pretty good health regen skill, and it'll keep you alive very well. Then we are going boom enhance and double barrel, and a couple points to do pocket full of grenades. Now, this is actually going to help us with bossing. At the heart of it, this is a mobbing build and a mobbing setup, but with double barrel and, you know, just any bossing weapon on the clone, you guys know how powerful the clone is. You can melt through bosses easily. And also, we can actually boss pretty well by ourselves as long as we are using a white elephant. So you want to switch to the white elephant for bosses. We can't, you can't kill the Valkyries with the Unleash the Dragon, at least in this setup. So you do want to swap over to the white elephant and the face puncher. That is pretty much our bossing strategy. But yeah, double barrel helps with that too. Now, I do think it's important to grab the speed skills because in a quote-unquote melee/Nova build, you're going to want to run towards your enemies faster and close that distance. So definitely pick up Supersonic Man, and you noticed I did grab Violent Speed. And then finally, I got Trick of the Light. Once again, we are not relying on our guns for damage. Trick of the Light will add bonus cryo damage to everything. Novas, the white elephants, or melee even. Now, this is an iffy skill, and, you know, enemies have to not be focusing you, but it's better than synchronicity in this setup, so that's why I grabbed it. And that is pretty much our red tree. Into the green tree, I went all the way down to Calm, Cool, Collected. Pretty much these first tier skills are the best. Let me take off my class mod real quick. Pretty much these first tier skills are going to help you keep your shields full for Calm, Cool, Collected. This is going to help manage your cooldown if you can't trigger it. Occasionally, your health will be under if you don't have your kill skills up or if you don't have refreshments active. So adrenaline is okay. It's not necessary. But, you know, like I said, we don't really need any of these skills in the blue tree. You might want to stick an extra point into salvation. I did notice it did help me keep my health full. But besides that, you know, you can just grab whatever you want. You do need brain freeze, obviously. I really do recommend getting really expensive jacket. This will help keep those dots off of you, which is very important for keeping Calm, Cool, Collective active. And one other thing I want to point out is Best Serve Cold might not necessarily be the best skill, and this is why I say you guys can take other skills, but they did actually scale this with Mayhem, so it is doing reasonable damage now, but it's not required for this build, and the damage isn't notable, but it's a Nova skill, and I wanted to pair it in our Nova build because it's pretty cool. And yeah, so the skill trees are pretty straightforward, and there's lots of variations you guys can mess with. You pretty much only need to get to Calm, Cool, Collected in the green tree. You don't need Best Serve Cold. You don't need Adrenaline. You probably don't even need Stiff Upper Lip. So mess around with these skill points as you guys see fit. I do kind of recommend sticking an extra point into Salvation. I think that's one change I would make right off the bat, is getting a second point in here. And now going over the gear, let's just explain some of these melee interactions and what we're going to be using. So the Kibsworth is a great weapon because it has splash damage on action skill end. Excuse me. This is going to help with your bossing when you're blowing up your clone. Basically, the reason why splash damage is so good is because when you're using the white elephant, the Stinger Shield gets your splash bonuses because it's a Nova, and then the white elephant also gets your splash bonuses because it is a grenade. Now, keep in mind, it doesn't get grenade damage. I tested it. I wished it did because we would use the grenade anointment. But anyways, if you trigger a white elephant off of your Stinger, which is kind of rare, and you kind of need to pump out as many Stinger Novas as you can to get this to happen. But also the Clone Novas, the Clone Stinger Novas can also trigger this. You will double dip your splash bonuses, and it does a lot of damage when you actually trigger White Elephant off of the Stinger. So keep in mind that the splash damage anointment on a weapon like the Kibsworth, which has a melee accessory, where is it? Well, we have a melee accessory on, okay, here it is. A barrel accessory, this melee accessory. So the Kibsworth and the Cutsman are the two weapons you want to be looking for with this anointment, because you can get that melee accessory, which will boost the damage on our Stinger. When it comes to the grenade, you actually want to use the recurring Hex Grenade. If you let your clone stay out for even a second or two, he'll toss a couple hex grenades out there, as well as duct tape mod, and these will get crits and freeze enemies with brain freeze. So not only is this really good for triggering Calm Cool Collected, but frozen enemies take 3 times the melee damage. So you definitely want to use a recurring hex grenade. And then when it comes to the artifact, we are mainly using the Unleash the Dragon for mobbing, and I actually think this is best in slot for mobbing when paired with our Linoge. So our Linoge is a ×4 COV pistol. You can get 2 melee, you can get 2 bayonets on it basically, which give us 120% bonus melee damage. So you see we have a melee accessory, and we also have a melee barrel accessory, so you can get double melee bonuses on this, as well as the 390 anointment, which does ridiculous things with our Novas and does ridiculous things with our Unleash the Dragon. So this anointment is very powerful and probably required to get your Unleash the Dragon going, so look out for that. And finally, when it comes to the class mod, it doesn't matter what you use. Now, the first thing I want to point out is I did try this with Infiltrator, and this is not a combo with the Ass Break anointment. It turns out the Ass Break anointment, if you look, you got to pay attention for this, but when I trigger it, if you were to slow the video down and look that back, it actually empties our shield and fills it back up. So that's what the game is doing, and the Infiltrator triggers while it's empty. So unfortunately, the Infiltrator does not work in this build. What I actually recommend is the Conductor. So I wasn't playing with this at all, so you don't actually need the Conductor. You don't need the Conductor. All of the footage from the beginning of the video, and when I was streaming this build yesterday, I didn't have a Conductor. I just went and farmed this one up right before, like literally 5 seconds ago. And this does give bonus shock damage to your melee, to your Novas, I'm guessing to everything else, but it does work with our Stinger, and it does work with everything. So I think the Conductor is actually the best class mod. I will have to farm one of these up with melee bonuses. And with that being said, here are the bonuses you are looking for on a class mod. Splash damage. Radius is probably one of the more important ones because Radius is really good. And melee damage. These are the 3 bonuses that are going to benefit our Stinger. And this is basically what you're looking for. And like I said, it's pretty awesome for this build that Unleash the Dragon does seem to be the best for mobbing. You don't need Knife Drain in this build because we have Lifesteal and we are gaining life with the Linoge. And so if you can't find a God-rolled White Elephant, that's fine because you can use Unleash the Dragon. And then when it comes to bossing, you can just abuse Double Barrel to kill bosses for you. So until you find like the best in slot gear on your artifact and stuff, you can just give your clone a freaking backburner and just boss for you. This build is very, very fun for mobbing. And that's where it shines, but we can kill bosses. I was streaming this build all day yesterday. We killed Wotan just fine. And I really enjoy this build in the Malawan takedown. And yeah. Now, real quick, when it comes to Mayhem modifiers, I think you want to use Galaxy Brain. This is going to be the best, since we do have speed in Zane's speed skills. Galaxy Brain is going to be really nice for triggering Calm Cool Collected, for getting easy crit shots, easy freezes on enemies. You really want to avoid the Mayhem modifiers that do passive damage to you. So what do I mean by that? Freeze Tag and Laser Flare do deal passive damage to you, but they're not as annoying as Boundary Issues, and they are not as annoying as Chain Gang. Chain Gang and Boundary Issues will ruin your strategy with Calm Cool Collected. It'll constantly keep your shield depleted. You don't want like Boundary Issues and Chain Gang. These modifiers right here were fine for me, but you can look for stuff like Mob Mentality. Healy Avenger is great. Oh, also you want to avoid Ticked Off because this will reduce our Unleash the Dragon dots. So do not use Ticked Off either. And one other thing I have to mention is barrels. We are a Nova build, so try to shoot barrels ahead of time because otherwise your Nova is going to set them off and you're going to kill yourself. And yeah, I think that is pretty much everything for this build in this video. This playstyle is super fun in my opinion. I really enjoyed playing this. I'm probably going to be streaming this again today if you guys want to check me out on twitch.tv/thickfillet_. But otherwise, guys, that is pretty much it from me. I'll see you guys in the next one. I'm out.